Hello and welcome to Southeastern 16, presented by FanDuel. I'm your host, Chris Lee, joined by Andrew Hutchinson, best of ArkansasSports.com. He's our man we go to when something happens at Arkansas. Hutch, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here on a busy week. Huge game for the Arkansas Razorbacks ahead with Ole Miss, and one that's gotten a little bit more interesting amidst some talk of will Ole Miss's Austin Simmons play or not play?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's always an exciting week when it's Arkansas-Ole Miss. I think people who maybe don't follow the two programs realize just how great of a series this is traditionally. I know last year, maybe the last couple of years, have been kind of a dud in terms of entertaining value. But generally speaking, this is usually a very competitive series and one that has fireworks. And this year, it seems like there's all sorts of off the field. Pre-game type of storylines with, as you mentioned, the quarterback situation. Who knows? Lane Kiffin seems to indicate that Austin Simmons is going to be ready. I think he's listed maybe as probable on the first availability report, but kind of rumblings out of Oxford are maybe not as encouraging. And then, of course, even beyond that, I mean, you've got the three Arkansas kids who transferred to Ole Miss from last year, and who knows how many of them are actually going to play. Two of them have yet to play, and Luke has, and Jalen Braxton. And Luke was thought to be out for the season or close to the season with an injury. And all of a sudden, Lane Kiffin is saying he's ready to go for week 3, not even listed on the injury report. Very interesting to see kind of how the injury situation plays out, both from a quarterback, super important, but also the additional storylines of guys transferring and then playing against their old team.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see on the Ole Miss side what actually materializes or doesn't, because the Luke has one that I thought he'd be on the injury report for sure and wasn't. The Simmons talk, I've heard the same thing. I mean, God only knows. But hey, the Razorbacks have got a healthy list of guys on the injury report themselves. Now, look, a lot of these guys are backups, third teamers, that kind of thing. I know Quincy Rhodes is on there, is questionable, and some other things like that. What are the key ones we need to watch in terms of availability here?
Quincy Rhodes was the one that kind of surprised me because we didn't know he was hurt. And I guess technically we don't know that he's hurt. It's an availability report, not an injury report. But it's weird that he's on there. Because he is significant. Like, he's been their best pass rusher so far. He's the guy that they looked at as throughout the offseason, it was a matter of who's going to be the other defensive end opposite of Quincy Rhodes. Like, he had pretty much locked it down, and we'd seen flashes of this guy's got the potential to be really good. And so far through 2 games against it's Alabama A&M, it's Arkansas State, so nothing to write home about. But he's been very productive and I've been pleasantly surprised by how well he's played. So if he is out, though, that's a concern for Arkansas, especially when you've got still some lack of depth on the interior of the defensive line as well. I mean, David Oki is the other probably key name on that list. He has yet to play. He's a transfer from Abilene Christian, making that jump up from FCS to the SEC. But he's a guy that some NFL people I talked to were really, really high on and think he's going to be really good. We have not seen it yet. He was limited during the spring. Now all of a sudden he's hurt again, had a knee injury during, fall camp. And I mean, the depth situation was so dire that they moved a backup offensive lineman. And when I say backup, I mean like second team offensive lineman to defensive tackle right before the start of the season, like a week before the start of the season. So that kind of shows you just the dire situation there on the interior. Because again, you've got Cam Ball at defensive tackle, and then it's like, okay, who else? You got a couple other guys that can rotate, but Cam Ball, I think, has played like 50 snaps in both of the first 2 games of the season. And I just don't know if that's sustainable for an interior defensive lineman as you make it through SEC play.
Yeah, boy, speaking of dire, the schedule hits that territory after this. I mean, Arkansas's got, I think, a top 5 strength of schedule in the country. Memphis and Notre Dame ahead. Like, I don't think anybody in the SEC has it easy. We look through the preseason schedules and say, this team's got it easier than others. But the middle of the pack and the bottom have been tougher than we thought. And so I don't think anybody has it easy. But adding those 2 games, it gets daunting. So I think this is a big game for Arkansas. It feels like a winnable game. But the 2 games the Razorbacks have played are nothing like what's ahead. What can we learn from those things that might be meaningful?
Yeah, I don't really know. we don't know much about this team yet because, as you said, the first two games were blowouts. I mean, you can't take anything away from a FCS game against a team out of the SWAC. No offense to them. And then Arkansas State, I thought was going to be more of a challenge. You know, it's the first time Arkansas and Arkansas State have ever played, and it's a game the Arkansas State people have been begging for forever. And I thought it was going to be a highly competitive game. I thought Arkansas was going to win, but I thought Arkansas State was going to easily cover the 23.5-point spread or whatever it was, and good thing I don't gamble. So they blew him out. So it's hard to say. I mean, I think Taylen Green is much improved from last year, but again, it's bad competition. But 10 touchdown passes is 10 touchdown passes. I think he's tied for the lead in the country, and he only had 15 touchdown passes all of last year. I think Mike Washington is a very good running back. He's looked a lot better, than maybe people expected. Based on what we thought he was going to be when they got him. But the defense, still some question marks, defensive line. So it's really hard. I mean, I struggle to take anything away from those first two games, other than maybe I will say this. I think they've been better at wide receiver than I expected. That was a major concern and question mark for me. And Taylen has done a really good job spreading the ball around and getting the ball to multiple guys. I think they've already got like 4 guys with 2 touchdown catches. I don't think they had but 3 guys with multiple touchdown catches all of last season. So done a really good job of spreading the ball around in that regard.
Yeah, you led me to where I was going next. You're starting to get comps for Lamar Jackson on Taylen Green. I mean, maybe he's the hype train a little bit, but I mean, you can kind of see it, right? The frame, the dual threat ability. And as you said, we don't know how good he is, but it's interesting, like in a league that doesn't have a lot of established quarterback play. I mean, that's the case I can make that Arkansas kind of surprises everybody this year.
Yeah, I mean, Taylen's a guy that people are really intrigued by. Like, I know, and I've talked to other NFL people, and they're intrigued by him. Like right now, he's kind of a mid-round kind of type prospect, and they're waiting to see, like, can he make that jump in year 2 under Bobby Petrino? And when you've got a guy like Bobby Petrino who's coached a Lamar Jackson, who coached a Ryan Mallett back in the day, it's like, okay, like this guy's going to get better, and we've seen that. I'm still, again, the competition is a major factor here. So I'm still like, I'm not jumping on the hype train completely. But man, he's got the athletic abilities, the physical traits and gifts that you want. And then if he can actually improve the decision-making, he did have a couple of bad interceptions against Arkansas State. You don't want to see that, but it does seem, as I said, he's spreading the ball around. Last year, he went to Andrew Armstrong almost every single pass, it felt like. And there's a reason Andrew Armstrong led the SEC in receiving. And it's like, well, why didn't you throw it to your other guys? And so this year, it seems like he is doing that a little bit better. He's going through his progressions. So, yeah, I think he's got a chance to be really good. But I think this weekend against Ole Miss is going to tell us a lot as to whether or not he is, the upper echelon in the entire country.
I'm going to ask you another in a series of questions that's hard to answer. But, hey, not our fault that Arkansas played the 2 games it did. Mike Washington, you mentioned, has had a good year. Omega Blake has had a nice little comeback year. Bobby Petrino's an offensive whiz. We know that. You see guys put up numbers. Who do you suspect are their biggest playmakers Saturday? And like how big of a dent can Mike Washington and Omega Blake make on other SEC teams?
I think Mike Washington is legit. I've been really high on him. I mean, he was the guy that got consistently praised by the coaches, by the players, all throughout, spring ball, and especially in fall camp. He was always making these big plays. We'd hear, we didn't get to watch any of the scrimmages, but they would tell us, like, here's some key plays from the scrimmage. And I'm like, well, he had a 91-yard touchdown run. And it's like, well, awesome, but what's that mean about the defense? And we did see a little bit of that breakaway speed against Arkansas State, but again, that's a Sun Belt team. Can he do it against the SEC? I think so. I think he's going to be a guy that's going to be very good. I'm not ready to say he's all SEC caliber yet, but I think he is going to be really good. Omega Blake, he seems to be kind of developing that chemistry with Taylen, where he's that number 1 target. But I'm wondering how much he's going to be like, the clear number 1, because I do think that Taylen is spreading the ball around more. I think we're going to eventually see more out of Raylan Sharp. He's a guy that's not even starting right now. CJ Brown has been, really good, making that jump as a, second year guy. We've seen a little bit of, I believe, Jaylen Brown. There's a lot of Browns. It's hard to keep them straight. But Jaylen Brown, I mean, he's a former top 100 recruit that originally signed with LSU, went to Florida State. Now he's here. I think we're finally starting to see why he was a top 100 recruit. So I don't. The good thing about for Omega is it's not going to all fall on his shoulders, and I think he is going to be a guy that makes plays and catches a lot of passes. But I do think it's going to be spread around a little bit more than what we saw last year with Andrew Armstrong for sure.
Hutch, I know we talked off season. You felt the defense was a big question, especially up front. Like you said, Quincy Rhodes has been great so far. Xavian Sorey, Julian, Neal, Steven Dix Jr. have had nice years statistically. Is it possible this defense was better than we thought?
Potentially. I do worry about depth. I mean, we talked about Quincy Rhodes. Like, if he's hurt and not able to play, then boy, I have serious concerns. And, we talked about the interior defensive line, but I mean, I do think there's a decent amount of depth at linebacker where they could sustain an injury to a, Steven Dix or Xavian Sorey, but would not be ideal by any means. And, Julian Neal, I think to me, he's asserted himself as the number one corner on the team, even though like he started game one against Alabama A&M and they actually targeted him twice, I think on maybe even back-to-back plays, and went after him, and he gave up a couple of catches against Alabama A&M. Oh, maybe that's a little bit concerning, but he impressed me significantly against Arkansas State, very much improved. And so but then you see some of the backups go in, like Jaheim Singletary. He's a guy that he's in his third year at Arkansas, former 5-star recruit that began his career at Georgia. And he went in against Arkansas State, and all Arkansas State did was went right after him, and he committed like a pass interference and then gave up a long pass or something like that. I can't remember the exact details, but I just remember going, ooh, man, that's not good. So the first team defense might be better than what I expected. I still have those concerns about depth, where if there's an injury or if you need to rotate a guy, then there could be some issues. Because to me, I think the giving up 21 points to the first two games is a little bit deceiving. They've given up more than that just because they had, I think against Arkansas State, they had a couple of fourth down stops in the red zone where they'd given up some yards to get to that point. Alabama A&M, after they scored on their first drive of the game, had two drives that they were moving, and they committed penalties and it stalled their drive. And it's like Arkansas benefited from some of that. So I think there's still some areas to improve there. And I'm still, the concerns I had are still kind of valid at this point.
Hutch, I want to ask you a couple of specific questions about the matchup. Before I do, let's pay some bills. We are presented by GameTime SIDEKICKS, which make these pretty awesome tumblers. That's the 40-ounce one I drink water from every morning. Officially licensed stainless steel drinkware, all SEC schools, over 350 other universities, stainless steel sippy cups, tumblers, 40-ounce bottles, and shaker cups. SE16 gets you 20% off your entire order at GameTimeSidekicks.com. So get your Razorback cups there. ROKFORM.com, ROKFORM. They make the world's strongest magnetic phone case, extreme protection, super strong magnets, Rock Lock secure mounting. September is the busiest month of the year with the new iPhone release. SEC 25 gets you 25% off your entire order. I got the car mount yesterday to hold my phone. It is tremendous. You will love their stuff that you need to protect your phone and all those accessories. You'll thank me for that one. Hovey Dry Goods is your new favorite hat. Look no further than Hovey hats for high-quality headwear. You get unique designs, great fits, and Bad Beat Team of the Week. That's Ole Miss, actually. Use promo code REBS, REBS. They caught a field goal in the last half of that game to keep some people who bet on Ole Miss from cashing in there. Anyway, promo code REBS. That actually, well, yes, that'll get you discounts on Arkansas hats if they have them. Not sure if they've got those yet or not. But anyway, Hovey Hat's your new favorite hat. HOVI, drygoods.com. Hutch, Ole Miss. I mean, Simmons, if he plays, he's been erratic. He's talented, but he's thrown some picks. They lose a ton of guys. If he doesn't play, you're looking at Trinidad Chambliss, who was at Ferris State last year, threw for almost 3,000 yards, ran for over 1,000. What does that mean in the SEC? I have no idea. Give me the range of expectations for how Ole Miss's offense can match up based on those two possibilities.
It's really interesting because I think the Chambliss kid is more of a runner. You got to be more aware of him, although Simmons can also move. And so Sam Pittman has told us they're preparing for both of those guys. And he thinks they're somewhat similar. They think they need to be ready for Chambliss, even if Simmons is healthy, because, you could see him in some more kind of Wildcat type packages. And so going to be very interesting to see how it matches up. They've got a really good running game. I think, kind of a crazy coincidence here is that Arkansas and Ole Miss have run for the exact same amount of yards through 2 weeks. Kind of a strange coincidence there. So, they can run the ball. I think their running back is maybe leads the SEC in rushing.
Yeah.
He's been very, very effective. The transfer from Missouri, I want to say. So you got to be aware of him. So we'll see, Arkansas's defense, we're going to find out if it's legit or not. We're going to find out if they are a team that can, be improved from last year and not give up as many yards and as many points. And especially, think back to last year's Arkansas-Ole Miss game. Ole Miss, I think, threw like 12 touchdowns or something. I mean, it was crazy. They torched Arkansas's defense. And is this secondary actually improved? I think it is. I think they do have more length and can better defend the pass than they did last year, but that's a very low bar to clear when you talk about the Ole Miss game. So very, very curious to see how Arkansas's defense matches up against an actually, good and explosive, Lane Kiffin offense. That'll be a tremendous test to see if they're actually, capable or not.
Well, they're both going to play fast. We know that, particularly Ole Miss. But I don't know. The defense, to me, is just not what it was a year ago after it lost all that talent. What do you see in the matchup when Arkansas's got the ball here?
I'm a big believer in Arkansas's offense. I mean, I think I even told you this before the season. I thought Arkansas was going to be very, very good offensively. And sure enough, they've scored 50 points the first 2 games. Again, competition level. I get it. But they have done some really good things. And, they've scored 50 points even though they're not playing at their best. And I mentioned the 2 interceptions Taylen Green had was not ideal. So the offensive line seems to be better. And the Ole Miss defensive line doesn't scare me as much as it scared me last year. I'm very curious to see if Jalen Braxton, the guy that transferred from Arkansas to Ole Miss, the corner, he's a guy that I think they were counting on playing and potentially starting. He's missed the first couple of games, I guess, with some sort of injury. I think he's on the injury report as questionable, or I can't remember what his tag was, but he's a guy that I'm curious to see because I saw him a couple of years ago as a true freshman. Really, really impressed me. I thought he was going to be a dude. He ended up getting hurt, only played in the first couple of games last year, transferred. Now he's hurt again. Who knows? But if he's healthy, I think he is a guy that Ole Miss can, count on being a key contributor for their defense. So, but I do think Arkansas's offense, and with Bobby Petrino calling the plays, gives them a significant advantage. Especially as you said, compared to last year's Ole Miss defense, it's not the same. It's not to discount them and say they're not talented or anything, but last year's defense was pretty daggum good. I did not realize until I was going back over the stats, they finished second in the country in scoring defense. I want to say it was last year.
They may have, yeah.
I did that completely. I knew they were good, but completely off my radar that they were that good. So it's probably fair to say there's probably going to be some drop off, especially when they lost as much as they did.
Yeah, I can't see how there's not. By the way, Arkansas 11 yards of play last week after really took the offensive output up a week ago. So it's an offense that feels like it's clicking on all cylinders coming in. All right, give me a storyline or something that we've overlooked or not talked about that's worth a discussion here on our way out.
I've mentioned the other 2, transfers that went to Ole Miss. I'll go ahead and mention the third is Patrick Kutas. He's been the starter, I want to say right guard for Ole Miss. And if you believe Pro Football Focus, PFF, he's been their lowest graded player. And this is a guy that last year was battling some injuries. He was expected to be a starter on Arkansas's offensive line. He ended up battling some injuries. Late in the year, he started getting healthy, and there was like 5 games left. And they were like, well, he told Coach Pittman, like, hey, I want a red shirt so you can play in 4. So like, well, if you promise me you're going to stay and be here next year, then we will redshirt you. And he said, yeah, I'm all hog. Yeah. So they ended up not starting. I mean, it's like Louisiana Tech, a game you didn't need him in. He played 4 games, redshirted. Lo and behold, first, as soon as the season ended, he hits the transfer portal, and he goes to a school that he had previously been quoted as saying that he grew up and was raised to not like Ole Miss. Like, he's from the Memphis area, and then all of a sudden he goes to Ole Miss, and so there's kind of some stuff there, and Sam Pittman, he said all the right things. I asked Sam Pittman directly, is there anything extra for you when you go up against a guy that did this, that told you he was going to do one thing and they went back on his word? And he's, nah, we don't, not holding any animosity or whatever. I'm like, okay, well, what is it like behind closed doors? So I'm curious to see what they maybe dial up, and, can they go right at the right guard? I don't know, but I'm very interested to see kind of what that dynamic is like, maybe after plays and stuff like that.
Yeah, I can't imagine that's the truthful answer. I mean, I'm not. Of course, that's what he's going to say. What else is he going to say? I would say it too. But yeah, that's wow. That adds some spice to this one. Okay, Hutch. I don't know if you reveal your picks on a certain day, if you've revealed your pick or not. I don't want to spoil anything that you have cooking. But if you're already giving out your pick or want to give it here, let's have it.
Well, before the season, I picked this as a loss for Arkansas. I still lean toward that, but the quarterback situation for Ole Miss maybe gives me a little bit more optimism for Arkansas. It would not surprise me one way or the other. I haven't made an official pick or anything like that, and I honestly don't know if I'm going to. But I do think what I will say is I think we're in store for another classic Arkansas-Ole Miss shootout. I think we're going to see a lot of points. And I think it's going to be a fourth quarter game. Whoever comes out on top, I don't know. But I do think it's going to be an entertaining one, and it's not going to be a blowout like we've seen the last couple of years. I think it's going to be competitive. So does Arkansas steal one on the road? They've won a road SEC game every year under Sam Pittman. So will it be this week? I'm not sure, but I do think they've got a chance, and I feel better about their chances now than I did maybe before the season started.
I sort of ranked the games in the SEC in tiers this week, and I had this one in tier 2. The more I looked at it, and especially when that injury news potentially on Simmons and the availability came out, I'm like, all right, I've immediately moved this to a tier 1 game because I think this is a much better matchup than I would have originally seen it being.
I agree with that. I think the injury plays a part in that, but also just I mean, you can't say like a game that happened in 2001 has any impact on a game in 2025, but these two teams have traditionally played wild games, 7 overtimes, the Henry Heave, games decided by last-second field goals. We've seen it all in this series, and I think we're in store for something similar to that.
No, I mean, this is not the game that everybody's circling in the SEC. There are probably 3 or 4 games ahead of this, but you could make the case that like when the dust is settled on Saturday, if this was the most interesting game of the weekend, wouldn't shock me.
Yeah, I would not be shocked one bit. But there are a lot of interesting games. I mean, I've got my eye on the Texas A&M Notre Dame game personally because Arkansas plays Notre Dame in a couple of weeks. So
yeah, we've seen a few of those this year, like Vanderbilt scheduled, Virginia Tech and South Carolina back-to-back, and those two teams played in the opener. We're getting a few of those gifts in the SEC this year, getting to see opponents a little earlier than usual. Well, Hutch, thank you for joining us today out of your busy schedule. Tell folks where they can find your coverage.
Yeah, so if you want to follow me on Twitter or X, it's NWA Hutch. And if you just want to go directly to our website, it's bestofarkansassports.com. We've got free coverage of the Razorbacks there, not just football, but also baseball and basketball. And hey, how about we can't ever say the SEC doesn't do anything for Arkansas. Did you see that baseball schedule?
I haven't seen theirs yet. Who's on it?
It's as much of a cakewalk as possible. They don't play LSU. They don't play Texas. They don't play Tennessee. They don't play Vandy. It's crazy. They don't play anybody.
Wow.
It's the softest set schedule I've seen Arkansas get in any sport in my however long I've been covering and following the Razorbacks. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's never as easy as you think. Somebody always sneaks up and is a little tougher, but yeah, all the brands right there are not on the slate. That's Dave Van Horn must have woken up and felt like it was Christmas. So, yeah. Well, we'll talk to you when it's baseball season too, and I'm sure basketball season. So, Hutch, always fun to catch up with you. You're one of my favorite people in sports media. Appreciate you joining me. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, Chris.
All right. Thank you guys for watching our coverage of SEC sports. We'll be here to talk about Arkansas and Ole Miss when it is done. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. That is free. Hit the like button if you like this. That helps our analytics. And catch our recap later if you get a chance. For Andrew Hutchinson, I'm Chris Lee here at Southeastern 16. God bless you. We'll see you again soon. This is Southeastern 16 presented by FanDuel.